When a narcissistic woman hurts you, her first response isn't remorse, it's satisfaction. In her mind, causing you pain validates her superiority. She sees your emotional reaction not as a sign of your humanity, but as proof of her control. The narcissistic psyche thrives on the illusion of dominance. It feeds on the idea that she can shape your emotions at will, that she can break you, then rebuild you when it suits her. It's not love, it's possession disguised as connection. At this stage, she truly believes she's untouchable. The ego creates a psychological bubble around her, a false reality where she's always the center, always right, always justified. Every hurtful word or manipulative act becomes rationalized through that lens of superiority. In her mind, you deserved it. You were too emotional, too weak, too naive to understand her truth. This is the twisted comfort the narcissist lives in. She mistakes control for strength and dominance for love. But beneath that illness, ion, lies fragility. The need to control others is never born from confidence. It's born from fear, fear of rejection, fear of exposure, fear of confronting her own emptiness. By asserting control over you, she hides from the deeper truth of herself. It's the mask of power worn by someone terrified of losing it. So, when she hurts you and feels no guilt, understand this. It's not a reflection of your worth, but of her insecurity. She clings to control because she cannot master herself. Her illusion of power is her only defense against the chaos within. And the moment you stop feeding that illusion, when you detach and see through her game, that's when her empire of control begins to collapse. When you stop reacting, something fascinating happens inside the narcissistic mind. The cracks begin to show. For a narcissistic woman, emotional reactions are oxygen. Your anger, your pain, even your confusion feed her sense of significance. She interprets your emotional energy as proof that she still matters, that she still holds influence over you. In psychological terms, she's not just seeking attention. She's seeking confirmation of her existence through your suffering. Without your emotional response, her inner world starts to lose structure. This is where her grand illusion starts to crumble. The silence you give her isn't just absence, it's a mirror she cannot face. It forces her to confront something she's spent her entire life avoiding, her own insignificance. The ego begins to panic because it can no longer sustain itself without external validation. She starts to replay every past moment, wondering where she lost her grip, trying to provoke you in new ways, desperate to feel that emotional spark again. Jung once said that people don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your lack of reaction does exactly that. It exposes her darkness to herself. It confronts her with the emptiness she's been running fro, the hollowness beneath the mask of control. What you once gave her freely, your attention, your empathy, your emotional investment, was her lifeline. When you take that away, she's left alone with the truth of who she is without power over you. And that truth terrifies her. So remember this. Your silence is not weakness, it's revelation. It's the moment her illusion begins to die, and your freedom begins to live. When you emotionally detach, something profound shifts, not just in your world, but in hers. What was once a predictable dynamic suddenly becomes foreign terrain for her. The narcissistic woman, who once thrived on your emotional responses, now finds herself standing in silence. And in that silence, panic begins to take root. It's not always visible on the surface. She might still project confidence, still pretend indifference, but internally, her sense of control is unraveling. She begins to question everything. Why aren't you reacting? Doesn't this tactic woe arcane anymore? Has she lost her power? These questions echo in her mind like whispers of uncertainty. You see, narcissistic control depends on predictability. It's a psychological dance. She moves, you respond, and the pattern continues. But the moment you break that rhythm, her inner compass collapses. Without your reactions to anchor her sense of superiority, she's forced to confront something she's avoided her entire life, the emptiness beneath her persona. This is where the mask begins to slip. Beneath her arrogance lies a deep fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of irrelevance, fear that she no longer has any hold over you. It's a silent panic disguised as composure. She might try to provoke you again, to reignite the old emotional flame, but what drives her now isn't strength, it's desperation. Carl Jung taught that what you resist persists, and what she's resisting in this moment is her own powerlessness. She cannot control your silence, and that realization eats away at the fragile identity she's built. Your calm detachment becomes her chaos. Your peace becomes her confusion. And in that reversal, the balance of power finally shifts. True strength, after all, is the ability to stay still while their world begins to shake. At some point, when the noise of control begins to fade and your absence settles in, she feels something unfamiliar creeping in. Guilt. Not the kind of guilt you and I understand, born from empathy or conscience, but a faint disturbance in the carefully constructed order of her ego. It's the moment her psyche begins to realize that something has gone wrong, yet she can't name it. The narcissistic woman rarely admits fault because doing so threatens the entire identity she's built. To acknowledge guilt is to acknowledge weakness, and weakness is the one thing her ego cannot tolerate. Instead, she buries it. She convinces herself that you deserved the pain, that she only reacted to your flaws, that she was forced to protect herself. Is internal rewriting of events is her defense mechanism, a psychological shield to preserve the illusion of moral superiority. Yet even beneath that rationalization there's a flicker of awareness. Somewhere in the depths of her subconscious, she knows she crossed a line. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't disappear. It returns, often in distorted forms. That faint echo of guilt becomes irritation, restlessness, or sudden emotional outbursts. She might lash out at others, grow inexplicably sad, or retreat into self-pity. What she's truly battling is not you anymore, it's herself. The mirror she avoids every day is no longer reflecting beauty or power, it's reflecting truth. And that truth is this: she's not untouchable, she's human, fragile, fearful, and haunted by her own choices. The tragedy is that she'll do everything to deny it, even as it eats away at her peace. The real victory isn't making her feel guilty. It's understanding that her silence is the sound of that guilt finally taking shape. When the illusion of control finally begins to crumble, her mind does what it's been trained to do. It rewrites the story. A narcissistic woman cannot accept the narrative where she is the villain, where she is the one who caused harm and lost power. So she begins to reconstruct reality in a way that preserves her ego. Suddenly, she was the one who was misunderstood, the one who cared too deeply, the one who only reacted to your supposed coldness. This revision isn't deliberate deceit, it's psychological survival. Her ego cannot coexist with truth, so it fabricates a version of events that restores her sense of superiority. This is the stage where she may return, not out of love, but out of necessity. You might receive emotional messages, half apologies, or sudden confessions that sound sincere on the surface. But if you listen closely, the subtext is always the same. She wants control back. It's not reconciliation she seeks. It's reassurance, though. She still matters. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow at work, the hidden unconscious self trying to reclaim what the conscious mind has lost. The danger for you lies in believing the rewritten version. Her remorse often masquerades as self-awareness, but it's manipulation wearing the mask of healing. When she senses your empathy reawakening, she feels her world stabilizing again, the pattern restored. Understanding this pattern is essential to breaking free. The moment you stop engaging in her narrative, you deny her the psychological ground she needs to stand on. She will try to rewrite the story to make herself the hero again. But your strength lies in remembering the truth. Because once you stop playing your assigned role, her story can no longer exist. Eventually, every mask begins to slip. There comes a point when she realizes that her words, her tactics, her emotional manipulations no longer move you. The silence she once saw as defiance now becomes proof of something. She can't control your awakening. It's at this moment that her power begins to dissolve, not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting altogether. You stepped out of the psychological game she created, and without an opponent, the game itself loses meaning. Inside her mind, this realization feels like collapse. The strategies that once worked, guilt, charm, anger, withdrawal, now fall flat. She senses that something irreversible has shifted. What she doesn't fully grasp is that the shift isn't in you, it's in her. Her influence depended entirely on your emotional energy. When that energy is withdrawn, she's forced to face the void she's spent years escaping. Jung described this moment as the confrontation with the shadow, the point where a person must either evolve or remain trapped in their own unconscious patterns. Most narcissists resist this confrontation, clinging desperately to their old identity, but for you, this realization is liberation. You begin see that her power was never real. It was borrowed from your reactions, sustained by your empathy, and fueled by your belief in her importance. Once that illusion breaks, her control over you ceases to exist. In the end, she is left with the truth she can no longer manipulate, that her dominance was only ever a reflection of your attention. And that's the paradox of healing from a narcissist. The less you give, the more you reclaim. The moment you stop responding to her world, you finally begin to create your own.